Hello, and good night, and carry a big stick. No, I don't hear anything.
Welcome back, listeners, or if you are new, welcome to the Digital Divide podcast. I am Justin Fry.
And I am Joshua Charletto.
So let's go ahead and cut to the chase. All right, Josh, I already looked at the show notes and I'm curious to hear about your news article. So please fill me in. Is No Man's Sky actually a good game? I'm just kidding.
All right, well, this podcast would not be complete if we didn't have some kind of callback to a video game, either a piece of news or discussion. So I figured I'd fill that in this week since, I keep saying we won't do it again.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a game some of you may know called No Man's Sky, and it came out, what was that, 2017, I think, last year?
Yeah, it was, I think it was 2016 because I remember when I
No,
started.
yeah, you're right. It was.
There's a couple people at work that were talking about it. So it was 2016, I think.
So the point of this game was that it was going to be the game to end all games when it came out. It was supposed to be this procedurally generated, which means that at the time you go to a new star system, it generates all the planets, and then you could go land on all these planets in first person and explore them, and each planet would have its own fauna and animals and creatures, and it would all be generated by program at the time of creation, of the game. So you start up a new game, it creates all these star systems, which are fully fledged giant star systems filled with planets, and you just can explore to your heart's content. And there's some battling and some, I don't know what, crafting here and there, I think. But the point was, it looked beautiful, and it seemed like something out of a dream. It was like, this is the game that everybody has been waiting for. They finally did it. It's a whole universe that you've never explored or talked about or seen before. It's amazing. And the demos they showed were incredible, and it actually worked. So then they launched the game, and I didn't play the game, but I read a lot about the game when it released. And it seemed to me that it launched very kind of halfway.
Early.
They launched it really
premature.
Early. It seemed like in the development cycle, and so it was missing a whole bunch of stuff, which they had promised, of course. And their main promise of it being this infinite world that you could, or infinite universe with infinite worlds that you could explore, seemed like it was impossible and it wasn't working.
Right.
So a lot of people got really angry. And, I'm not going to debate if that's right or wrong. But regardless, the game came out and it almost pretty much flopped. Not almost, it flopped. Everybody just kind of was hating on it, and it was not what they promised and everything. Now, fast forward to now, 2018, I think it was a week or two ago, that they actually released a massive patch, and they've been patching this game since it came out in 2016.
Yeah, pretty much. Since the day it came out, it was literally receiving a patch. So
yeah, they've been adding things to it here and there. They're trying to scramble, basically, to build the game that they had promised in the first place. And by the way, when they released it, I think it was $40. So
really?
talk about a game that, you're asking a lot. So anyway, there was a patch last week that they released that pretty much brought the game to where they had promised in the first place. And I watched the preview, or not the preview, I'm sorry, the trailer for it, and it looks great. It looks like it should have released, or it should have been at the release of the game. They added all these features back in. They added all the worlds that you can explore. You can have space battles in space with starships. You can own your own frigate.
Nice.
You can spend all your time on one planet. You can go to multiple planets. Anyway, it looks great. But I read this article at Ars Technica, which is a technical journal, or technical blog, I should say.
Yeah.
About one of the developers talking about the development and launch of No Man's Sky and where they had problems and why and what they did wrong. And I found it fascinating to see what he had to say because you really could take a case study on this whole game about releasing products at the right time and releasing them with the correct marketing. Just the level of promise that was made and then the delivery of this product, it was way off base. And they made a lot of mistakes, a lot of really, really big mistakes. And fortunately, not just this article, but I've actually read a few other articles interviewing other developers.
Yeah.
They all seem to agree that they had made some pretty major mistakes. So,
Yeah.
the interesting thing about the game is that people really, really wanted to love this game. And I don't blame them. I felt the same way. And I didn't want to spend money on it until I knew that it was amazing. But it's this game in concept is so compelling. It's like everything you've dreamed of as a child for a game where you can just do whatever you want, go wherever you want. It's the type of thing that draws people to something like Minecraft, where you can have infinite exploration, infinite stories to tell just by walking around and doing things. So
Right.
it's interesting to see the life cycle of where this game has come from and come to, and what this guy had to say about the development and the team and what they did to catch up. I don't know yet if the new release is any better or worse. It seems like it's not getting hated on anymore, so I'm guessing that it can't be tremendously horrible.
Right.
And also, it looks like they added all the features back in. So, anyway, take a look at the article. I'm going to stop talking about it. Take a look at the article. It's in the show notes. It's a really good read, and it's also pretty short. So they just talk about what went wrong and why, and what they tried to change in it. So pretty interesting.
Yeah, and when this game came out, I think everybody had high expectations. I was already playing a game very similar to that, which was Space Engineers. It wasn't as vast as No Man's Sky, and eventually, I think, started expanding its universe, or the gameplay would expand to actual planets and whatnot. So I was not. I wasn't really bought into No Man's Sky, and I just watched from afar and watched everybody, I guess, get disappointed when it first came out. So it's interesting to see breaking the silence, and then I guess the future of No Man's Sky, and if there will be a future, will be interesting to see if they come out and like redeem themselves essentially with a new release. So we'll see.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I watched it from afar, and you actually make a great point that I hadn't considered. Space Engineers is a fantastic comparison
Yeah.
because they started that game. That game is pretty popular and has made a name for itself.
Oh
And they
yeah. It's
started that game really small and early access.
yes,
So they knew
exactly.
what they were working with and they built it up from there. And I think that that's the better choice with these types of games where there's the whole goal is to get to this infinite level of, in theory, infinite, I'm putting that in quotes, level of content. How would can you even deliver that at launch? And it sounds like no, based
No,
on what happened to No Man's Sky.
you
So,
definitely have to build yourself up to it.
yeah. Anyway, what
That's
about
a,
your news article, Justin?
yeah. So I don't know how many people are actually going to understand or like have any context to this article going into it, but a lot of sporting events slash, for example, like the Warrior Dash or the Spartan races and all that jazz, they have at the end like you finish your race and then you get a essentially they'll hand you a beer, and I just never understood that concept of like why you would go and work out. You put your
Is that what this
body.
article's about? Because that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. So, I don't understand it. A lot of people like races do this all the time. Like there's beer races or like brew runs where you do a 5K and then you drink a beer right after. Like your body itself is already it's already straining itself, and then you're trying to build back. The thing you should be doing after you work out is rebuild and like help rebuild your muscles by taking like eating protein, having recovery drinks, etc., etc. And don't take this advice as professional advice because I am not a professional trainer. But like you should, the last thing I would think was, yeah, I'm gonna have a beer right after I run a 5K or a half marathon. To me, that makes no sense. And finally, somebody made the right decision to post an article, and I'm sure there's been several educational posts too as well in journals and whatnot about this. But this is an article specifically pointing out that, hey, maybe you should think twice before grabbing that beer at the end of the finish line, because you could be doing more harm than good after you've completed this extremely strenuous task and putting your body into more of a depressive state and avoid the rebuilding process, just so you can have a nice cold beer at the end. It just blows my mind that people would consider this, and I know people who do this. And I asked them, "Don't you feel?" I'm like, "You're essentially already exhausted, and once you have that beer or alcoholic beverage, I feel like it'd go right through you, because you're strained, your body's strained, you're not like you don't have enough in your system. You're burning everything in your system, so you're taking the quick trip to getting extremely tipsy and then having to drive home. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I don't know why people do it. I would never do it. I don't. I will never do it. I don't do it. But it's an interesting article read, and it explains what I thought was self-explanatory, but apparently isn't. That you should probably avoid drinking alcohol right after you work out, because your muscles are trying to rebuild themselves, and alcohol does not help whatsoever. So
Interesting. This is a
yeah,
really interesting article.
yeah, I was just, I don't know how I fell across it, but all the recommendations that I would give, one simple one would be drink milk, or even like chocolate milk at the end of workout, if you don't want to pay a ridiculous amount for protein shakes, or eat a bagel in peanut butter on top of it. I mean, you're still eating more protein to help your body and your muscles rebuild. So just do it that way. Don't drink a beer. Don't be a tool and drink a beer. So
See, and I always assumed slash heard, and this article confirms it, that alcohol is also a dehydrator, especially
yes,
beer. So
duh.
you think you're coming into this really cold, frothy drink that like feels good after a hard workout or like a day in the sun, and then you're really dehydrating your body, which is hurting
You're
yourself.
making
So
it worse. Like,
yeah,
yeah, it's like the stupid phrase that, well, water's in beer or water's in coffee, but still, you're dehydrating yourself. It's not like it's doing anything for you. You're making things worse
yeah,
for yourself.
right.
But anyways, that's a good article. Take a look at it. So both will be in our show notes, so please take a look. Let us know if you guys have any articles. Hey, I would like to suggest, if there are people out there listening to this podcast, why don't you send us some articles that you might find interesting? I wouldn't mind receiving them. I don't know about you, Josh, but maybe we can talk about them.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
So cool. All right, so let's follow up with the follow up. Haha. I actually don't have any other than I got an iPad, but no one wants to hear about that. Josh, what follow up do you have for me?
Yeah, mine's quick, and I won't take any time with it. Just to say that I had mentioned last week that I used an app called Workflow,
Yeah.
which I use that all the time, but I used it for a specific purpose, which was to have a geofence. When I walked into the office, it would send me an email with the timestamp so that I could easily just pop that into my timesheet. And it does the same thing for when I leave. I misspoke. It's not actually Workflow that does that for me. It's IFTTT, which is if this then that,
Mm-hmm.
which is a web service that I've been using
Amazing.
for a long time.
It is life changing.
Yeah, IFTTT is pretty great. There's a lot of functionality in there and different things that you can do. For me, one of which is the geofencing with the timesheet, which also updates a Google Sheet with all of my punch in and punch out times. I'm
Yeah.
putting punch in and punch out in quotes. And then it does some other things like for me, it tells me when there's going to be rain the next day so I can bring an umbrella.
Yep.
Some people, I think maybe you, Justin, do this, where you can have it tell you when the space station is overhead.
Yes, it's the coolest thing ever. The International Space Station, whenever it is literally oh my gosh, comes over my house. Literally comes over my house.
Yeah,
It
it's
sends
pretty
me a
cool.
notification. It's really cool. I mean, it's really a nerdy thing, but the the possibilities with this are endless, and as more and more APIs are being opened and applets are being made available, you can really make this a powerful tool. So,
But even at its core, when it started as a way to watch websites for changes,
yeah,
and it still does that really well. So if
correct.
a website makes a change, or if you are subscribed through IFTTT to an RSS feed, and that basically is a feed that a website will have published. If they make a change or publish an article, it will send to anybody subscribed to their RSS feed. IFTTT supports that and will actually give you notifications or deliver you the article in any way, shape, or form that you want. And the cool thing is that people keep writing little, or not writing, but putting together these building blocks within this application, this web service, to build new functionality all the time. So I do use certain things from IFTTT, if this then that, through workflow, and also I use workflow for other things that I mentioned from last week. But I just wanted to correct myself and say it's not workflow that gives me the timesheet capability. It's if this then that.
Right, and I think a future episode we might bring this into using IFTTT, and
Yeah, it's three T's.
it's just when you explain this to somebody, I always have a problem with making sure that I'm saying it correctly, because they always give you the look of say what again. So, but I think in the next episode or in a future episode, we're going to talk more about voice assistants and how you can integrate them with not specifically IFTTT, but workflow slash Siri shortcuts, which will eventually come, but that might be in another episode. So we don't want to go into too much detail into this, but I think it's a great tool. We highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. It's life changing for me, but we can talk more about it in a different episode. So it will be way too much. There is so much you can do in this thing.
Okay, great, perfect.
Cool. So let's go ahead and move on to the topic of this week's podcast. It's definitely a step away, but very similar to the podcast we had, or the episode we had, where we were uh, talking to each other or asking each other questions if we had ever heard of, or can we explain a particular item or subject during their time period. So it's going to be an episode based off of Josh and I asking questions to each other, but they're not just normal, like typical questions. They're questions with deep thought involved, where deep thought will be involved. There will be some yelling, I'm sure. Some questionable answers may be provided. And who knows if we'll be friends by the end of the episode. Who knows?
We'll be friends, but maybe it'll be with some conflict involved.
We will continuously say, "You really believe blank is better than blank?" So, or like that's snotty nose lifting of the nose when we walk by each other.
So I figured that not every episode can be a high school science lecture.
Yeah.
So throw this in there for a little change of pace and maybe some laughs.
Yes.
And toss it up a bit.
Would you like to go first, since you're the creator of this idea? And actually, to be honest, you are the creator of all the fun ideas. So let that be noted that Josh is a fun
don't say
person.
that. All your ideas are fun too, Justin.
Okay, debatable.
All right, so sure, I will go first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a question. This will be a little bit different from the last time Justin mentioned that just a second ago. We're not going to do the whole generational aspect of it in this particular one. We're just going to ask simple questions and try to answer them back and forth. I think we're not going to do points or anything. Both of us will get a chance to talk through what our answers would be.
Yeah.
And then we'll move on to the next. So I will ask the first question, and I think that I will start with something simple here. So what sport would be the funniest to add alcohol to? Like, you have to drink alcohol as part of the sport in the sport rules.
I think curling would be a really good one.
I didn't even think of that.
And I'm clarifying curling as a sport, since it is an Olympic sport.
Oh, sure, why not?
I think adding a mandatory amount of alcohol to watch curling would be fantastic, because of the noises that they make when they're uh, sending the, I don't know what it is called, the curling rock, the stone. I think I can't remember the technical term.
So run this down for me a little bit.
Okay.
You're saying that these guys need to each time before they go up to grab the bar to curl,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to drink a set amount of alcohol, and then they go up and attempt this.
Oh God, yes. Okay, so what they have to do, I'm gonna lay this in detail. They
This is
have to
pretty perfect after your news article, by the way.
they will need to shotgun a Busch Light beer. No, dare I say a Natty Light beer.
A
Shotgun
what? What is that?
Natural Light. It's like
Oh
super
yeah, okay.
super
I've never heard it
disgusting
called
beer.
Natty Light.
Yeah, it's all
That's
the college kids
ridiculous.
say
Oh, the
nowadays.
college kids.
Anyways, they would have to shotgun one of these, which they're not high in alcohol content. So hopefully by like the second set, they've had at least, I'd say, about 10 of these things. So like the set that matters, if it's a tie, like it's tied on both sides, or it's a very close score count, they have to be at least feeling it just a bit, to the point where they're like going to be offsetting some of their throws or scrape or brushing too hard, and just that idea of completely missing where they're supposed to go would be fantastic. It's not harmful. It's not going to hurt anybody.
Well, yeah, and
Um,
I feel like they're gonna wipe out real easily. I didn't even think of that.
yeah, so
That's fantastic.
I'm trying to think of it as a, you're not going to get hurt. Like if you did it with like football or baseball, I feel like that is a potential to hurt somebody. Where this is just more like fun because you're going to be watching them struggle trying to do this rock across. So
I feel like each each time they go up and start with the brushes, you're just going to say, where were they going with that? Like
and
they're way off.
and Dan sent the rock off to the bumpers, and that works, I guess, because that's never happened.
And they started out in the wrong direction. Um, so mine, I think, is way simpler. So I'm just going to blurt it out because it's not quite as funny. I don't think. But I was going to say basketball, just
Okay.
because it would be freaking hilarious to watch them miss the basket constantly. Like, where was that shot going to go?
Wouldn't that be like
Or,
middle school basketball though? It's like watching middle school basketball all over again.
yeah, but that was funny.
Yeah, but no one was drinking. Everyone was completely sober.
But like, just plowing into cameramen and like falling down on the court and getting trampled and just, it would be fantastic to watch these giant men just plowing into each other and missing baskets left and right. Things, very simple shots, and just missing it completely.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that's my lame answer, but I think I think that would be fun to have sports with mandatory alcohol.
That was a good one. When I first looked at this question, I thought you meant the amount of alcohol to watch the sport.
Oh
So
no,
you'd have to
to play the sport.
play it. Oh God, that just made it way that much better. Okay, so I have one for you. Are you ready?
Okay, hit me.
All right. This is perfect for you. This is the question I thought of you the moment I was creating the ones that I have here. If you were given the choice to use one specific Apple device for the rest of your life, and that means one device for the entire rest of your life, what device would that be?
The iPhone.
Okay, I should be specific. What specific iPhone would
Oh
you?
no, don't
You,
do
you
that.
have to pick a specific device.
Oh boy. Okay, well, I would say whatever the newest iPhone X number plus. So like iPhone 8 Plus is the newest right now, so I would say that and then just for the rest of my life.
Gotcha.
Because that's pretty good, we're at a quad core, we've got some processing power. It's a big enough screen.
Yeah.
It's waterproof still. The camera's pretty great. And I think that it would be like by the time I'm 60 to 70 to 80, it would be the new flip phone. So that would be fine. And it would still function.
Josh, that's like 30 years right now. There's no way we would have flip phones or what? I'm trying to think of them. When I say flip phones, I'm thinking of a flip phone that would have been at least a generic flip phone and used amongst a lot of people. So I think 2000s, like 2002 2002, 2003 was the heyday of the flip phone. So it's not that long ago.
Well, but your question, it has some magical properties to it, because I don't think any of these devices, no matter what it is going to last that long anyway. It's just going to fall apart. The
Okay.
battery's going to die. The board's going to go bad.
Okay. So hypothetically,
But
if nothing were
let's
to
just
break.
let's just say they're magically able to last that long. I would
Yes.
say the iPhone.
Okay, good. That's a good one. For me, that's really hard because I have too many devices that I like. But I would probably use the if you took the current day MacBook Pro and removed the keyboard and put my keyboard in my 2013 MacBook Pro, I would use that for the rest of my life because I love these things. The battery life is still amazing after 4 years of use. So I would just continuously use this laptop because one, it's portable, two, it's got enough power. It needs more, but you could always have more. But it gets the job done. The screen looks fantastic. It looks fantastic. Keyboard feels fantastic. I would be happy with this laptop. It is my favorite laptop of all time and will always be my favorite laptop. So I would always use this for the rest of my life.
That's a fair answer, though. I will say the keyboard on the current gens is actually pretty great. Other than all the potential problems that they have with the keyboard, where it has to be repaired all the time, and it's an incredibly ungodly amount of money to repair it. That aside, the actual function, if it functions, it's a great keyboard. You get used to it, trust me.
Yeah, and I'm
because
sure
that was my first reservation about it. I have the 2016, and it's great. So. Yeah, I agree. They're amazing. I love these computers.
I'll never get old. That's Retina screen. I don't care what other people say. It is beautiful.
Yeah, the best.
All right, your turn.
All right, so let me look through here. Let's go with a ridiculous one.
Okay, I like ridiculous.
What do you think would be the coolest animal to scale up to the size of a horse?
Oh my god. So so it can't be bigger than a horse right now.
No.
Oh man.
No. So, and you're going to scale it up. So it's got to be something, with some value or shock value to it. It's a tough question.
Okay, no, I have a great answer. Okay, I would do a wolf because, and you know where I'm already going with this. When I first saw
If you say the words Game of Thrones, I'm going to punch you in the face.
When I saw these oversized wolves in a show that people commonly watch on Sunday,
it's terrible.
I would do wolf because the idea of riding this massive beast that just looks completely terrifying. I mean, I could have said a lion, but the lion, technically, if it was bigger, it would still, to me, have the same shock value. But having what is it called? Is it called a bear? Oh,
a dire wolf?
Dire wolf. Oh my god, sorry. I am really sorry. I just offended all those people out there.
I'm offended. I read the books.
Whatever, bite me. But the dire wolf, it would be cool to have something like that, and they would be terrifying, and have it like walk beside me, but then being able to ride a wolf and run across a field in this really cool, majestic animal, I think it would be pretty awesome.
So I just want to be clear. You want to be Jon Snow.
Doesn't everybody?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
All right. That's a pretty good answer. I think that I would choose a chicken because that would be freaking hilarious to watch. A chicken just rampage around and run in front of cars and smash through buildings. Not buildings, but houses. I mean,
those eggs would be so big.
And the eggs would be massive. I mean, come on. You could feed... I just solved the world's hunger problem.
I was just
if you scaled a chicken up to a horse size and you had two tree of them, you would have eggs that could feed entire sets of families at one time with one egg.
And you could use all the parts of the egg except the shell. So,
what other parts besides the shell on the inside of the egg?
You have the egg whites, and then you have the yolk. So you can have I don't know what you would do. You eat the yolk, and then you can eat the egg. I don't know.
All right. Well, either way.
You could try and split up and have a different meal each day. You could have the egg yolk, or you can eat just the egg whites. I mean, people do it all the time.
Yeah, yeah. But either way, I think that'd be hilarious.
You can bake a lot of cookies. You can do a bunch of stuff with a
Yeah,
huge egg. That's
yeah.
fantastic. I would have never pictured. I can't. I would
A
be.
giant chicken. The
Yeah.
closest thing to real life dinosaurs that we would ever get.
Yeah. The most annoying
Yeah,
thing.
it would be super annoying.
And oh god. All right. Well, that was a
All right,
good
well,
one.
your turn. Yeah, your turn.
Okay. So the next question I have. Oh man, I gotta look. Okay, this is something that I've been asked before, and I have a perfect answer for. So I'm sorry if I like pre preempt this with my uh, bias, but uh, what period in history would you like to be stuck in uh, to start your life all over again? So this means, let me clarify, like if you wanted to, not that you want to do this, Josh, because we all know our lives are awesome right now, but I'm saying if something were to happen and you had to start your life all over again, what time period, it could be in the history or you can do current day if you wanted to, would you pick to choose to start your life all over again?
It has to be a time in history.
Yes, pretty much. You can't do the future.
Darn it.
How would we know? I could even do. We would not even know.
Well, it's obviously got to be better than right now.
Debatable.
Um, I'm going to avoid my super easy and super lame answer of right now. And
Okay.
I'm going to say, man, that's a tough one. Either the 1950s or maybe back in Roman times.
Okay.
So what was that, like turn of the century or turn of the
Uh,
that would be like something something 0 BC.
27 BC was when the Roman Empire
Yeah.
was founded.
So after that, like 100 or 200 BC, somewhere in
Okay.
there. I don't know.
Can you explain why?
I would like to see I would like to see how close they were in their republic to
Mm-hmm.
what we call our republic today. And I also would like to see what they were actually like. If they were the pompous Romans that we think of them today, or if they were the romanticized Romans that are in movies, or if they were the scholars that we also think of them. I think that would be interesting to see what kind of people they really were.
Huh. That's a good answer. I would say
It's not
that's a.
funny, but it's just,
It's not
it's
meant to be.
interesting.
So, for
They also had a
me,
lot of technology for the time, and I would love to see who was doing all that stuff. Who's coming up with the aqueducts? Can you show me, please? I would like to meet these people.
who fell across this plan or idea of properly irrigating our farms so that our crops and everything works out just the way
Right.
they need to be. So
Yeah.
good one.
Plus, they were doing a lot of conquering, and it'd be cool to see like the military strength that they had. I realize that I'm crossing thousands upon thousands of miles with each of these requests to see things, but still, it would be interesting.
I think it's definitely doable. For me, I have debated this for a very long time because the 1950s, I also agree, would be a good time. That's not my answer, but the 1950s would be a great time because to me, I feel like that was a very interesting time, specifically, let's say like the 1960s with the space race, because
Oh,
of
yeah.
like that to me would be awesome, like fantastic. But
That
that
would be
isn't.
cool.
But that's not my pick, uh,
Okay.
which is
Can you
surprising.
pick something?
Yes, I'm going to pick something. So I would actually pick the. Oh, sorry, I got distracted. I will pick. Oh man, I'm trying to decide which one. I think for me, it would really truly be. This is going to be a shock, I guess, but I would love to live during the times of like the Saxons and the Danish
I almost
and the
went that
Vikings,
direction. I
because
almost went that
like
direction.
I throw away the idea of technology, I throw away the idea of having plumbing and having to go poop wherever or go to the bathroom. Like that idea is a little weird. Not really, but like the fact that it was not really a clean life style then, and the medicine sucked, and everybody. I mean, it was really bad. But to me, I've always wanted to be in that time period because it's so fascinating to me about for various reasons. One, the religion side, just being how influential it was for those people to fight and feeling as if they're fighting under God or whatever God they believed in, or several gods. But mainly just the idea that I could walk around this cool, like this fur coat with a cool sword forged with my father's ring stone, like just that idea of having that, or I can walk around and say, I am Justin, son of Thomas, son or grandson of Basil. Like that just sounds cool. And
What happens if you came back as a peasant?
okay, no, that would be kind of sucky. I would not
Yeah,
want
that
to do
would
that.
not be. See, that's what was stopping me because I'm huge into reading about medieval times and the dark ages before them and all that stuff. But it was so unclean and unsanitary, and
Yeah.
the shot at which you had to become nobility was 0 to none. So I don't know. It just that's the only part. I mean, if you were standing there looking in on all the things you wanted to see, maybe, but who knows? I
Yeah.
guess there are no rules. So anyway,
That's interesting. Well, I'm a barbarian, so I guess we'll move on to your next question. What do you got for me?
barbarian scum.
Yep.
I'm debating about two different questions here, but let's go with what part of a kids movie completely scarred you?
Oh my.
Let's add a little clarification to this question. When you were a child, what part of a kids movie completely scarred you? And can be any age child, but you
Oh
still had to be a
man.
child.
That's a hard one. A hard one because I'm trying to think. I don't think I had any movie that scarred me when I was a child that I watched that was actually a kid movie.
Okay,
Uh
let's change it then. As a child, what movie completely scarred you? Can be any movie. It doesn't have to be a kids movie.
Freddy versus Jason.
Okay, that's a good answer. When did you see that movie?
I don't remember. I think it was. Oh, let's do some real time check up. So when did Freddy versus Jason? I feel like it was middle school
Oh my God.
for me. Hold on.
Once again, you're so young. You're killing me right now.
Oh yeah, so it would have been I would have been in sixth grade.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I
so
heard the
I
pain.
saw that movie when I was in sixth grade, and it completely terrified me because I was afraid to go to sleep. I was afraid I was gonna wake up and die because I would never wake up from my dreams. But the funny thing is, like now I wake up, or now I watch scary movies, and my parents and my family, we used to do this when I lived with them. Like nights we would hang around and watch TV. We would watch like Ghost Hunters, and my mom would fall asleep watching it. My dad would like doze off, and we would like, oh, I'm bored. I'm gonna walk away now. But I think back to the time like this when I was in sixth grade and I watched this particular movie, and I was terrified because I remember going to my friend's house who his mom and dad always let them watch scary movies, and they actually watch scary movies as a family. And we watched Freddy vs. Jason uh, against my parents' will, and yeah, that
That's a
did.
pretty hardcore movie. I've
Yeah,
never seen it.
yeah, it's pretty hardcore, and I actually liked the movie. It was pretty good, but yeah, no, thank you.
I think we all have similar stories from when we were a kid.
Yes.
Um, so I'll answer mine. And I think I've said it actually before on the podcast a long time ago. I can't remember. But mine was from a legendary movie called Transformers the Movie. Not the new Transformers movies. The original cartoon Transformers movie called Transformers the Movie, in which they killed my favorite hero, Optimus Prime.
Oh my god.
Literally, they released a movie for all the kids who loved the Transformers, and then they killed Optimus Prime in front of every child who loved him, by the way. And I wept. I remember weeping as a child when he died. So they killed my childhood hero, and that was kind of horrible. And that definitely was not the best. It was scarring.
The movie was. I'm trying to see. They're saying that the movie was depicted. The film of the story's film. Oh my god, the film story takes place in 2005.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
Try
that's
not to look
hilarious.
ahead. Yeah, try not to look at that. Um, it. I look back on it now. I've seen it as an adult, and it actually is. I mean, it's a cartoon movie, so it's not the greatest, but the story wasn't bad, and they, were headed in an interesting direction.
Yeah,
It's just you killed the thing that loved, like all the kids loved,
yeah. I
and
mean,
that's
he's the main
not
character.
the greatest idea. Yeah. So,
It's like that they would
but
kill off Jon Snow. What?
yeah, it definitely had an effect. So, for kids who don't want to see, I feel like it's different for adults where you kill off a character in a show and it's done to highlight some kind of stakes or done to add a dramatic moment to
Yeah,
or to make it seem like the show has some kind of irreparable decision making done by the characters. But these are kids, and they're black and white people, these kids, and they just want to see their hero
right.
win the day. So, yeah, that was scarring. I have a similar situation though. I saw Aliens. No, I
Oh,
saw Alien, the first one,
such a good movie.
way, way, way too early as a kid. Mostly on accident. I will say that I have not ever been afraid of a movie since. So, specifically, I remember the part where the guy in the wheelchair is like being dragged through the hallway.
Yes, that
Do you
is a
remember
really
that part?
yeah, 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 yeah.
That was incredibly scarring to me.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I saw that way too early.
that's a rough movie, and
Yeah.
that same family got me hooked on Predator and Alien. So,
I love
oh
them to
yeah,
this day, but that was
yeah,
a
they're
rough
so
movie.
good. I can't I don't. This is another topic, but or this is off topic. Sorry, but I love the Alien movies more than I
Oh,
like
yeah,
the
me too.
Predator movies. So
Well, I can't. Okay, so yes, in general, I like the franchise Alien and Aliens better,
yes,
although they've gone a little bit off the deep end lately.
yes,
And then Aliens 3, was it?
yes.
Or Resurrection? I forget. Whichever one. Well, 3 was pretty bad, and then Resurrection was horrendous. So I guess just Alien and Aliens were great. But Predator, the first Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger? I mean,
Yeah,
holy cow, that's like a cult classic, for goodness sake. So good.
yeah. It's dang good. I will. I will. I'm probably gonna actually go watch that again.
Yeah, it's so good. All right, so you're up.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a simple question, but it's not simple in the sense that it's a this or that, or like if that or this is this better or that better. So the reason why it's going to be simple is that it's a simple answer, but you have to describe why you're picking that. So
Okay, okay.
for me, something that I know you and I both enjoy is sci-fi and fantasy. We
Sure.
both like both genres, but I need you to pick which one is better. Which one do you prefer more than the other? And explain
Oh,
to me why.
Justin, why do you do this to me?
Because I know it's going to hurt.
It hurts. So here's the thing about what I like and dislike. It often evolves and changes, and I go back and forth.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm super into sci-fi, sometimes I'm more into fantasy and I just want fantasy. Sometimes I mix and match. But historically, looking back on what excites me most and when I am the most engaged, it's definitely sci-fi. I would have to, if I had to choose between one or the other, it would be sci-fi. And the reason for that is that I really like, I, this is going to come as a surprise and I apologize as it being a surprise, but I really like technology
What?
and I love thinking about future technologies and what they can do for us and the problems and questions that they bring up and how they inform the human experience, I guess, and what they mean to people and how it changes life. I love all that. I love that to death. Plus, I love cool robotic things
I mean,
like
who
giant
doesn't?
mechs and robots. Oh, yeah, so good. So, spaceships, space battles. Heck yeah. I mean, who's to say that's going to be in the future, but it's definitely sci fi. and I love all that stuff. I mean, I'm a huge Star Wars nut, so
Yeah.
that tells you right there.
Yep.
I do love my fantasy, and there are times that I do prefer fantasy over sci-fi just because I'm in that mood. But more often than not, it would be sci-fi. And there's one last reason why. I really like the idea, and this isn't true of all sci-fi, but I've heard it described, and I forget where this comes from. I'll have to maybe look it up for the show notes, but it's been described that fantasy is the function of making up whatever you want. There are no rules to the world other than the rules that you, as the author or the writer or the storyteller, set.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantasy. Whereas sci fi, more often than not, or sometimes, usually I should say, adheres to a lot of the same rules that our world adheres to, but you get one big thing that you can make up and change. So, in
Yeah.
other words, it's like the modern world, but with AI. Or it's like the modern world, but maybe we figured out hyperdrives. And
Yep.
then you can build it out from there. And for me, that makes it more identifiable. Like, okay, I can see how this would be a completely different society, and yet there's something that ties me to it because it's very similar to our actual world. So that's, I don't know. I really like sci-fi, and I like big robots.
I I pretty much 90% of that I agree with. Um, Mainly because my answer was going to be sci-fi as well. I love fantasy, and I love, and we always depict fantasy being the medieval times, wizards, sorcerers, witches, uh, great warriors, blah blah blah. But to me, sci-fi by far, hands down, is what I would prefer. Um, I'm waiting to the day where somebody successfully merges the two, where you have a really good mix between like sword battles and uh, that whole aspect. Other than Star Wars, like some people can argue Star Wars is that merge
That's
of
what I was
both
going to say.
fantasy and sci-fi, but to me, like a pure combination would be if I was a guy literally on a spaceship with a sword, and you would be deploying onto like some battlefield and fighting with a sword rather than this massive ship that has laser guns on them. Anyways, uh, and there are probably books out there, and I did just read a couple months ago Red Rising series that was very very close to that, and actually Josh had some Roman mythology,
Oh,
Greek
nice.
mythology in it, which was fantastic. It was a great read. You need to get on that eventually, but
I will.
sci-fi for sure. Over, I'm a Star Wars nut too. I just would love to be in that universe because of just you get the best of both worlds. You get lightsabers, you have the Force, which is basically magic, and then you have these massive space battles and this expansive set of universes. It's just awesome. So I love books and movies that are sci-fi and games as well.
I could argue the Dune series would be very sci-fi and fantasy.
Huh. The Doom?
Dune, Frank
Dune.
Herbert.
Uh-oh. I'm writing that
Anyway,
down.
good answer. Very good answer.
Okay, now it is your turn to stump me. Or make me squander.
How about, have you ever sent a text message to the wrong person?
Of course.
And if so, who?
Uh,
Or I should change the last part. You don't have to say who. You could just give as many details as you wish.
no, this is something that I know. Okay, straight up, to be 100% clear, I have sent a text message to my own mother that I should have not sent to her.
Who was it intended for?
It was intended for a significant other, and I believe it was my current wife. Or my current wife. I mean, my current.
You've had more than one wife? I had no idea.
My
That's
my
amazing.
wife. But at the
When
time,
did
I
that
think,
happen?
yeah, at the end of the time, we were just dating. I don't remember the context of the text. I really don't want to relive that. But I know my mom had a classic response of, "Well, love you too, honey," and she sent me back with like just like a smiley face and laughing because she totally knew it was supposed to go to Aaron. But I remember sending that and not realizing it, and it so basically, like I fire it and forget, and I walked away, and an hour
Oh
later, I
boy.
look at my phone and I see a text from my mom and not from Aaron, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting, and lo and behold, it was somehow I was texting my mom and didn't realize I had sent the same text to, and what I was intended to send to Aaron sent to my mom, so that was embarrassing. So
That's fantastic. I think we've all had that moment. I have done it several times, and I'll outline a couple of them real quick. But the reason, or rather, having done so, has changed the way that I use my phone purposefully because I never want it to happen again.
yeah,
So when I send a text, I hit send, and then I swipe. Let's see, I swipe from left to right, so you go back to the list of people
yeah,
to text. That way I can ensure almost to a fault that I will never send another text to the wrong person again.
yeah. It's so embarrassing.
So for me, it was there's two of them. One of them I sent a message that was intended for my wife to my boss,
Oh
and it
God.
was a pretty personal message
Was
in
it your
nature.
current boss? Can I interject? Was it your
No, it
current
was not
boss?
my current
Oh
boss.
God, because your
I
current boss would be completely fine with this.
Yeah, I would feel great if it was my current boss. I'd be like, oh yeah, no problem. But it was a boss from a while ago, and it was not the best. So that was embarrassing, pretty embarrassing.
Did you
And
leave that job the next day, or did you?
no, no,
Okay.
I did not. No. So, and it just, it's one of those situations where neither of us said anything about it, other than I said I was sorry after I sent it in the text
God.
field. But other than that, we just
Uh,
never spoke about it. And I want to be clear, it wasn't anything majorly dirty or anything. It was just totally personal and just embarrassing. So I definitely learned my lesson after that one. Before that, though, I have definitely sent messages on accident to my mother-in-law intended for my wife.
ooh.
And those were more like warning shots in my brain, like, whoa, 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 you need to be more careful, dude. Because they were nothing big. But I was like, if I had said something really bad,
You
it
could
just
have
went to
been.
her mom.
Yes. Especially at the
So
early stages of dating somebody, that's never a good thing.
yeah, it was that also was embarrassing on a different level. So
Nice. That is good. I like that one. And I'm sure I'll continue to do that. And I just get to the point where I only text like three people on a daily basis. So like I go, well, if it happens to one of the three, I'm sure they'll understand.
it's
So
so easy to do. So easy.
nice. All right. Let me try and I like have all these questions that I like to ask because I want to answer them myself. So
Oh, sure.
forgive me, but
No, please.
uh, oh, so this is a weird one, and I don't know why I came up with this, but what piece of technology do you wish could stay at its current state forever? And so this is very similar to like picking an Apple device, but is there something specifically right now that you wish will never change and will continue to be the same way it is moving forward?
Oh man. That's like against all of my beliefs
Well,
when
exactly.
it
That's the
comes to
point.
technology.
But is there something that's like just perfect, just right? You don't want it to change, or maybe you have some you have some nostalgia behind it that you don't want to let go on. That you just want it to always stay that way.
I am going to say paper.
Huh?
I would like paper to stay as paper as much as I razz everybody around me, and I'm sure they find me so annoying. I say things like, "Oh, radio? They still make that?" Or, "Huh, paper? I didn't know that was still around." Um, that's just me being a jerk. I realize that paper paper is such a great piece of technology, I would say. And while it does have an effect on the environment, or can,
Mm,
if done properly and with the right amount of care, it also could be done where it wouldn't have a major effect, I would say,
yeah.
hopefully. But all that aside, it's perfect. You can roll it up, you can fold it up, you can write anywhere you want on it. It's just you can do anything you want, and it's a very physical action. And changing that, I think, will take a long time, if ever.
Hmm.
Until you get technology that really is science fiction, I don't think you can knock paper off of its pedestal. It's just, I mean, I have never doodled on anything but paper. And I don't think I will ever doodle while taking notes on something like an iPad. It just doesn't feel natural to me. And maybe that's the old man talking, but paper is just perfect. You can take it anywhere. You can do whatever you want. You can fold it up, put it in your pocket. You can carry around note cards. You can, it's so versatile and can be used for almost anything.
Huh. That is definitely something I would have never picked, and something I'm actually surprised. I guess not surprised that you picked, but that was something that was brought up. So very
Yeah, I'm
nice.
pretty adamant about it usually, so it is pretty surprising.
Well, for me, like when I thought about this question, I immediately thought of the fact that I like cars and trucks too much that I don't want that to ever change. What I mean by this is I don't want them to ever be to the point where they can uh, be written out of uh, written out of society because of flying cars or something other in the future. I like the idea of being able to physically drive a car or truck or vehicle attached to the ground, feel the road when you're driving between it, like being able to feel the G forces as you're going around a corner. Like to me, that's exciting and enjoyable, and I don't want to ever lose that. So I hope that the technology stays the same, where we remain to be driving cars on the ground on roads forever, essentially. Um, and I think it's just because I'm a car guy and I don't want to see that go away ever. So it's kind of a generic, and I think people could have probably expected me to answer it this way, but it was either that or coffee.
I was going to say coffee too.
We're way too much alike.
Cars are interesting. So let me ask a couple questions. So
Yeah,
if
please.
you said it has to be on the ground, you don't think it would be exhilarating to be flying a car at hundreds of miles an hour or 100 miles an hour
In an
through
early,
the air?
in an earlier in the early stages of my life, I wanted to be in the Air Force. Surprising. So I wanted to fly,
Everybody did.
but yeah, I yes, that would be exciting. But to me, it's more exciting being on the ground. I think it's because I'm
Really?
hugging the ground. Like you'd be hugging the ground closer to the ground and going fast on that. Um, I love spaceships and the idea of planes and flying, but to me, cars, trucks, automobiles will always be the better, something that I'm more interested in.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And I like
All
that.
right.
I think it's also just like the idea of putting your foot down and hearing that engine like roar or not roar, depending on what vehicle you're using. So,
Yeah, but some of those things you describe, I feel like could be in almost any vehicle. You
yeah.
know, like it's more about the technology building. I don't know. I don't know, because I guess you get into the electric based
Yeah.
technologies and you're not going to hear that roar, I guess. But you could build potentially flying cars or hover pads or whatever that
Yeah.
would have that kind of engine. I don't know. So interesting. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. It is your turn.
If you. Hmm. This one's really deep. I'm going to change my mind. This one's really, really deep and very, very important. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
uh, technically, my opinion to this is yes.
Why do you say that? What
Okay,
makes a
so let me
sandwich?
break this down. What
Okay,
makes
please do.
you already got to the point where I was getting. What makes a sandwich?
Sure.
Hell if I know. But
Okay,
I
that's a good
know
answer.
a sandwich to me means you have a piece of bread and you have some sort of uh, meat, or maybe it's vegetables in between. You're sandwiching the physical food in between. You're sandwiching it. It's like that's what a sandwich, I mean, to me, means. You're squishing something together and you're eating it with a bun. And that's probably incorrectly. What basically just there's a bun and there's a filling in the middle and you eat it because that's how sandwiches are. Hot dog is just an open face sandwich or like a half cut piece of bread, putting a piece of processed meat in and you're eating it. like upside down or like sideways. So it's still a sandwich. You still put toppings on it. You still put your lettuce, not lettuce, well, that's stupid. Relish. You put your mustard because no one puts ketchup on hot dogs.
I do.
You're not American. Well, I guess that's not really American. That's more Chicagoan, but that's okay.
Yeah. I mean,
But
if it's a Chicago hot dog, I absolutely will never put ketchup on that.
oh, yeah, I would hope not. But like you're still putting your condiments on it. You're still eating it, but you're eating it like a sandwich. Just the bun isn't cut all the way. It's just kind of like half cut. So that's why I think hot dog is, yes, it is indeed a sandwich.
Interesting. Well, unfortunately for the podcast, I agree with you
Oh my
because
god.
I think it's got the bun. It's it's sandwiched between two pieces of bread, even though it doesn't it's not in patty or slice form. It's
Yes.
still between two pieces of bread, so I feel like that's a sandwich. So I'm going with sandwich. Hot dog equals sandwich.
So let me build off of this.
Okay.
Would a gyro be a sandwich?
I think so. I
Because
think a gyro is a sandwich.
it's still pita. It's still like a piece of bread with a slit in it and opened up, and you still put meat. You don't have to put meat. You put something filling in the middle of it, and you're eating it by grabbing one side and the other side and eating it like a sandwich. So to me,
I think for me, the defining feature of a sandwich is the bread.
yeah,
So you can't call it a taco because it's not like a corn tortilla. It's still pita bread. It's a bread that
yeah,
you're sandwiching something in the middle of.
right.
Even though if it's pita, you might be bending it around the meat.
That sounds terrible.
Oh boy. So yeah, I think I agree. Hot dog equals sandwich in the same way that I think hamburger or cheeseburger equals sandwich.
Gotcha. Okay, I don't know if you're gonna know the answer to this question. So if you don't, I apologize.
All right.
But can you tell me your favorite video game novel?
Favorite video game novel?
Yeah, so it has to be. I could have said favorite novel, but that would be boring
Let me
because
think of the video game novels that I've read. Um,
it's very specific.
as in a novel based on a specific video game, or a novel about people playing video games.
The first.
I think, and I don't. Oh god, I'm so terrible. I gotta look up. So there was a StarCraft novel that I read a long time ago, and I think that was my favorite. Novels. Let's see what Google has to tell me. Oh my goodness. Hold on a second. I'm gonna go get it. 1 second.
You're fine. Josh has left his desk to go find a book so that he can use it to answer the question. This is what old age does to you, my friends.
Okay, I found it. It's called StarCraft Liberty's Crusade. It was the first novel. Even though I'm reading in some Wikipedia article, and Wikipedia is always correct, so obviously, that there were 2 books before this. Either way, it was probably not the greatest book ever written, but I hadn't read a whole lot of science fiction at the time, and so it felt like the greatest at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed it, so that would be my answer.
Wow. The reason why I picked this is because there's one particular book that I read. I don't remember I think it was in high school. It probably would have been around this time. One of my favorite video games of all time, or video game series, has been the Halo series, and I know Josh loves Halo series.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I was very surprised about was when they started creating the novels for Halo. So there was they were books based off of the video game series. I read the first book that came out, which was The Fall of Reach, and I can't remember. I think it's by Eric Nyland. Let me double check. I think it is Eric Nyland. Yes, it is. And my God, it is a fantastic book.
I'll have to read it.
I have them. So if you want, I think I have almost every single one of these books in digital and in physical copy because I love the Halo series. There's
All
so
right.
many of them, but this book was fantastic. It blew me out of the water. The writer, Eric Nyland, is amazing. I was very impressed by it. I was hooked. You really get to know the background because this is all canon, which makes it even better. This is completely canon, and for those who don't know canon, it's basically saying it's within the books are within a universe, so they're all connected. Is that the best way to explain it? Like the characters within the books are connected with whatever media is being published. So whether it's like a video game or a movie or a TV series, does that make sense? Or I guess I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know
it
how to
does.
explain canon. But anyways, so this book is fantastic. It talks about the it's a prequel essentially to the first Halo, and it explains more in detail about like how the Spartans came to be, some of the stories behind Dr. Halsey. Like it basically goes into a lot of the background information that you don't get to hear about or ever hear about until the later video games, and the story behind Master Chief. So it's really good. As soon as I read that book, I was hooked, and I have even to this day have bought or read every single one of those books. And actually, I think I'm due for two because I got so caught up in reading Joe Abercrombie's series. So I have to go jump on that now.
I will say that if I had read Halo as a novel first, or at all, and not played the games, I probably would have loved Halo. I
Oh,
like
so good.
the premise. I think most of the things that I don't like about Halo are the fact that Halo games is the fact that the games are lauded as creating something that I feel like has already been created at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So they get a lot of credit where I don't think they deserve it. And I don't like the design of the tone and theme, especially of the enemies. So I feel like with a book, you can sit down and read it and just get your own picture of the enemies and the characters. And I think that it probably would have gone over way better in my head and just been fantastic. So I'll have to read them.
Nice. I have most of them, so if you ever get to the point where you want to, I can always lend you them. One thing I will note though, what I really like about the Halo series too is that you get the typical like story about Master Chief, and you get to hear about his his colleagues, his comrades, and all that. But what's really nice is that they have four different areas that they go into, as in like there's four genres within the Halo series. So one of them would be like the story behind the Forerunners. So those who get into Halo will know what I'm talking about. So you'll know about the people before, basically like before Christ. That's what the Halo universe has. Is these Forerunners are like the gods who created everything, and then you have the Master Chief side, and like the humans, and uh, then there's also the other side of the Sangheili and the Covenants, and it's really fantastic. And then even there are other types of Halo books within the series that have different genres where they're like a crime novel. So there's one called Halo Last Light that is actually more about uh, finding out somebody who was a murderer, or finding out how somebody was murdered in this colony or this off-site place in one of the solar systems. So it's really fascinating, and it's really cool to hear it, read those books, and they're continuing to kind of like change up the kind of culture behind them and the theme behind them, and they're bringing in now modern day topics. So there's a little bit of LGBT stuff in there as well. So it's actually pretty cool.
I will say, make one more point. That is that when I was reading books like that, there really weren't that many. Um, there really weren't that many video game books published.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot. I mean, Halo came out later, and I wasn't reading those kinds of books at the time.
Well, of
So
course.
anyway, it was a little bit older for me. So, all right, that's a good question. I like that one.
Nice.
I think one more each, or do you think we should cut it there because we're running a little long?
No, I think one more each is fine, and then we can
Okay.
go ahead and go into our rant and then close this bad boy up.
Sounds good. So my next question is going to be, man, there's two that I'm trying to debate between here. All right. This is really hard, and I don't have an answer to it, so that's why I'm reluctant to ask it, but I want to hear what you have to say. So,
Okay.
what is something that is really popular now, but in 5 years, everyone will look back on and be embarrassed by?
Oh boy. There are so many things.
For me, it's the 5 years that makes it really hard.
I think the biggest thing, it's going to be like the snorting the condom challenge. Sorry to get a little
What?
like this is the dumbest. People are going to look back and go, "What in the world were people thinking that this would be something that would catch on, and why the heck did it catch on? And why did people continue to do it?" 5 years down the line, I'm going to look at my kids and go, if you do something like this, I'm going to kick you out of my house and you're going to live on the streets because that's the dumbest thing you can possibly do. Like, I just don't understand the logic behind it. And
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good.
I mean, there are several other things like the pop socket thing. Like, it just annoys the hell out of me. I mean, it's kind of used to it. And what I'm referring to is that little, like, handle that you can put on the back of
Your
the
phone?
phone, and it makes it easier to hold on to. But like, I just don't get all these different designs on it. It just makes me look back and just shake my head. But
A vendor gave me one the other night if you want it.
no, I'm okay. I'm a little concerned why the vendors are sending out things like that. But
Because they can brand it and it's easy and cheap to make.
no, thank you. But that
All
is
right,
what
well,
I would pick. What
that's a
is
good
yours?
answer. I don't know what mine is. I have to think for a second more because it's the 5 years that makes it tough. Where like in 5 years you're just gonna look back. Otherwise, I would have answered social media. If it was like a
Ooh.
longer period of time, I would answer social media. Like 10, 20 years.
Yeah, I
We'd
think
look
like
back and
10
be like,
to
what were we thinking?
at least 15 max would be
Yeah.
where we're
Yeah.
gonna look back.
But maybe I could say something like Snapchat. You
Oh
know?
God, yes.
In 5 years, I feel like people are going to be like, Snapchat. Oh my gosh.
Filters.
All those people with their duck faces and their filters and their ugh.
Josh, people haven't done duck faces in at least 2 years.
So
so
that was the 5 years ago thing that
no one
now we
does
look
that
back on and
anymore.
people are embarrassed by. Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part. Well,
I guess I'll answer Snapchat because it's pretty embarrassing, even now. So I guess in 5 years it'll be embarrassing.
oh God. Yeah, hopefully it is because I'm tired of it.
Yeah, it's a tiring social media. It's tiring and ridiculous and very addicting.
I
So,
have the best last question,
okay.
and I've been
Shoot.
waiting to ask this for a very long
Shoot.
time. What is the true episode 1 through 3 of Star Wars?
I you need to clarify your question a
Oh,
little bit more.
okay. Hmm. Is there an episode 1, 2, and 3 of Star Wars?
Are you trying to say that the movies that don't exist called episodes 1, 2, and 3 actually don't exist? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I'm just trying to poke fun and trying to get you to get angry about it. That's all I'm trying to do.
Oh, I'm way past angry. I have felt I've gotten to the acceptance and then the just denial stages in different orders of what they normally are, where now I've accepted it and I just deny that they exist. Um, if you're saying what were the first three movies, it's definitely 4, 5, and 6.
Yes.
If you're saying what were the episodes 1, 2, and 3, I don't know because they don't exist. So, yeah.
And just to clarify for the people who are completely confused, we're talking about like the Phantom Menace. I don't even remember the Attack of the Clone or Attack of Clone, the
Attack of the Clones.
Clones, and then was it Revenge of the Sith or whatever the heck it
Yeah,
was?
right.
Um, Josh doesn't like these movies. When I was growing up, thought these movies were fantastic, and now as I'm older, I look at them and still think they have some context. But Jar Jar Binks has to go. But
So I make a lot of jokes about them.
but you're serious. I know. I get
In
it.
some ways, I'm serious. They are not good movies. They're
No, they're not.
just you. It's not. I don't feel that they're defendable as good movies.
I have the high ground.
Oh God, please don't. Just don't. So what we're talking about is that Star Wars, when it was released, the first 3 movies to be released were actually episodes 4, 5, and 6 in their own little trilogy.
Yes.
So then that left audiences at the time it was released to wonder what happened during episodes 1, 2, and 3, as if like we were telling a story in the middle of the story, which is always how you want to tell a story anyway.
Yeah, that's how it works, right?
So that was very clever of Mr. Lucas, and just points to his brilliance. However, then he went back and made episodes 1, 2, and 3, and I make a lot of jokes about them not existing and so on and so forth. There are some really important things in those movies and some things that I absolutely adore and love in those movies, even though they're not great movies on the whole. On the whole, the acting was subpar or marginal. On the whole, the story that I think he was trying to tell that a friend later enlightened me to, I had a hard time seeing for myself without somebody pointing it out to me.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm dumb, and that's probably true. But also, I don't think he did a clear job of telling the story. Now, once I heard it, I can see it in certain places subtly, and I think it's a very good story that he was trying to tell, but I don't think the execution was there for sure. So there's some good parts, and the other part is we've got some things from those movies that just undeniably are more Star Wars than some other things, or just fantastic.
Like the battles.
Notably, yeah, the battles. Well, the Jedi battles. None of that was in the first 3 movies ever made.
I mean,
that all came from episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Specifically, I would say the Phantom Menace.
Oh yeah, that was such a
the Darth Maul scenes.
That battle was such just a paragon of Star Wars. Yeah. Just amazing. And then, we got things like Ewan McGregor playing Obi-Wan Kenobi. How awesome. I would give anything for them to make a movie with him as Obi-Wan again.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Just so great. So
anyway, really good.
There are redeeming parts of it, and for that, I will watch them, but they are just not great movies.
I'm glad I got that out of the way.
I think we're good there. I think it's a good place to end.
I think so too. So let's quickly go through our rants. Mine's pretty self-explanatory. Prime Day, Amazon's Prime Day just had occurred this week. And one of my biggest problems, and I didn't buy anything, which is surprising, but then I guess not surprising, because I'm too cheap sometimes. One of the biggest problems I had was even just browsing the website, I constantly was receiving these wonderful pictures of these dogs. But the problem is that the dogs would say, oops, sorry, the web page won't load. But my problem is, how in the world did Amazon not prepare for having what they've already understood as their highest sales volume day, in possibly the highest sales volume day in their, in the fiscal year, and not have enough bandwidth ready for having people log on and constantly hitting the refresh page. But they thought it was probably better to put these dogs to say, hey, look at these cute dogs, and be distracted by the fact that you can't load up your cool sales that you can get really pretty much steals on items. But, whatever. That's just me.
Yeah, somebody or several somebodies really messed this one up. It's never been like that before on Amazon.
Yeah.
And it was like they were some amateur web host that just couldn't handle it. Which is ridiculous. We are a web-based retailer who is unprepared to sell products over the web. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, in classic fashion, they're like, hey, we made a lot of money. So how much money did you make, Amazon? We're not going to tell you. So.
The only comparison I can make is this last time when they did the Steam sale, which is Steam, where they sell a whole bunch of video games for really cheap twice a year. They have these big sales. Steam is a part of this developer called Valve, And so they have this web store of digital games that you can buy. And when they do the sale, it's usually lots of people hitting the website all the time. And sometimes it can be interesting, but usually it's not a problem. Usually they build it correctly. But this last time, they ended up having to disable the search function and a lot of the functionality with the search function because it messed up or something, or
Who
it
knows?
wasn't performing correctly. So they just disabled the whole thing. You could still search, but it didn't search real time like it normally does. They just turned the whole thing off.
Nice.
It's like, well, what do you think? Who? How many people were you planning to come by and look at your store? Like three? Or I don't
It's
understand.
like you bought
So
the single veggie tray for the open house, and then you have one cheese tray, and everybody eats all the cheese, and nobody eats all the veggies.
I've been to those parties. Oh my God, that's so great. Like, okay, I have 25 people. Here's the one cheese platter. Thanks. And there's like two crackers, and you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
this is interesting.
how am I supposed to eat this? Oh God.
Well, my rant is more vague and more general as per usual. If you're going to convince me of something, please have the data in hand. Or if you're going to tell me that there's some kind of problem, please bring the data with you to show me that there's a problem. Don't just say, there's a problem, and when I ask, well, what's the problem, not know what the problem is. That's ridiculous. So if you are working on something and there is a problem, make sure to document the problem so you can bring it to the people who can fix the problem.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty self-explanatory.
I would think so, but it continues to happen where people bring problems to me and there's no actual examples for me to troubleshoot the problem on or fix the problem with documentation. And I find that incredibly frustrating. What do you just think I'm going to make it up or like pretend like I know what you're talking about? I don't know what you're expecting. So just stop for a minute, document, or go ask the people who told you there was a problem and actually dig down and do some investigative work to actually bring that forward. Don't make me do it in order to find some problem in some haystack full of needles. So, yeah.
Or needles full of haystacks.
Well, see, there's a lot of problems. So there's a lot of needles in the haystack. So not only do you have to find needles in the haystack, but then you got to sort through the needles to figure out which of them is the actual needle you want.
Right. It's like people they come to you with that and they say, well, there's a problem. And then you ask them, what's the problem? And then they just start loading you with a bunch of totally unnecessary,
Oh,
irrelevant
that's my
issues. That's
favorite.
the
That's
best part.
so good. Yeah. So good.
Full
And there's
just,
usually a so pause beforehand, Like so what's the problem? I don't understand. So
here's the thing.
the thing is, and you're like, "Oh God, this is gonna be so bad. It's
And,
so
and,
so bad."
and they're like processing it in their brain as they're talking to you, and you're already dreading asking the question.
Yeah. So have data or some kind of evidence or proof. I mean, it's kind of argument or persuasion 101. Have something to back it up. That would be great. End rant.
I think that's a good way to end the podcast. What did you say?
It's a way. I don't know about good, but it's certainly a way.
Well, I wanted to thank everybody as we've reached our 11th episode. So thanks everybody for taking a listen. And if you did like this episode or any of our previous episodes, please give us a review on iTunes or wherever you're listening to podcasts. You can tweet at the show at Digital Divide PC or send us feedback by sending us an email to askdigitaldivide@gmail.com. All that information can be found easily at our website, www.digitaldividepodcast.com. We'd like to encourage you guys, if you want to take a look at our Patreon website. We're still building it up. Donations are welcome. However, we're doing this just as, out of the not kindness of our heart, because that sounds like we're providing a service, but we're doing this as a hobby. It's not intended to bring in a profit. We're just trying to enjoy ourselves and talk about the things that we love the most. So please jump on there and take a look at that. Additionally, if you guys really, really, really do enjoy listening to our voices, our beautiful voices that you can listen to when you're working out or when you're driving your long commute, you can individually listen or follow us on Twitter. I have my handle set to at JustinFry121, and that was an improper and totally messed up way of introducing my handle, but that's okay. Josh, please tell people how the heck they can follow you.
Oh, they'll get the gist. Don't worry about it. I'm at J Charletto, so first initial, last name Ciarletto. You can also get to me at josh@charletto.com for my email. I'm also on the Instagrams and the Facebooks and the Snapchats and all the stuff. So you can just search me, and I'm usually there. So that's where you can find me.
Please don't add me on Snapchat. I won't add you because I don't have it anymore. So, but until next time, guys, we will talk to you later.
Bye.